All right. I'm going to do a response video to people that attack my pound for pound list because I don't have a bunch of Lilliputians on the list. Okay? Let's talk about the little itty bitty weight classes and the overemphasis on the accomplishments that they have because they go through multiple weight classes. Yes, I'm nerding out on this video, boxing nerding out on this video. All right, welcome back to the channel, subscribers. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you can be notified of when we release more videos. Also, thank you to everybody in the Patreon community. We got another video coming up today. Thank you so much to the people that come by the live streams. Make sure you're there 8 a.m. Central Standard Time for my man, Blood Boxing, KQKC Boxing, Trap House Boxing, and Curtis Anderson on OG Boxing Talk, our Sunday show. Now, like I said, I'm nerding out on this one, okay? I'm nerding out. And that means I am about to address something with a little bit of detail, all right? Now, if you check ESPN's pound for pound list, if you check Ring's pound for pound list, if you go on to Twitter and you put out your pound for pound list, you will inevitably run into this type of logic. That somebody that fights at bantamweight because they fought in 5 weight classes is a better pound for pound fighter than somebody that, say, fought at 130 pounds and 135 pounds. Because, of course, that is 5 weight classes and somebody else only has 2 weight classes, right? You run into this all the time. When people started talking about Manny Pacquiao being the greatest fighter that ever lived, much better than, say, somebody like who's at middleweight like Bernard Hopkins, they say, hey, Manny Pacquiao did it and held belts in 5 weight classes. I think Manny Pacquiao's actually 7, but they had him in these many weight classes. Bernard Hopkins only has it in 1, right? But now, for the sake of this conversation, I'm just talking about pound for pound lists right now, okay? Don't want to get into this Manny Pacquiao versus Bernard Hopkins. There's a lot of really good things Manny Pacquiao did in his career. Bernard Hopkins held a belt at defended a belt 22 times at 100 and 160 pounds. Both great fighters. But look, here's the thing, man. All right, I am not going to give these little fighters twice the credit for doing half as much. And let me explain what I mean by that. In the little itty bitty weights, okay? In the little itty bitty weights, let me pull up my spreadsheet on the side, okay? Let's look at 2 factors. And I said I'm nerding out here. 2 factors. The number of active fighters in those weight classes, right? So, how many people are actually fighting at those weights? And how much weight is there really between the weight classes? Okay, so I'm making the argument that a weight class and 2 weight classes are not necessarily the same thing or as valuable. So take, for example, minimum weight, which is at 105 pounds. There are, according to BoxRec, and I'm rounding these numbers up. I'm rounding these numbers. Okay, I acknowledge I'm rounding them. There are, in the world, actively fighting minimum weight fighters, 250. 250. I'm rounding to 250. The real number is somewhere between 250 and 300 active minimum weight fighters on the entire planet, according to BoxRec. Okay, so that's 1 weight class. The second weight class above that, and I'm looking at the total numbers of people that you could fight, period. I'm not talking about how everybody that fights at that weight class. At Light flyweight, the next weight above, which is 108 pounds, there is between 500 and 550 active light flyweights on the entire planet. Between 500 and 550 on the entire planet. Flyweight. There's between 750 and 800 flyweights on the entire planet. Super flyweight. There's between 750 and 800 super flyweights on the planet. And at bantamweight, there's between 1,000 and 1,050 bantamweights on the planet that are active, period. So when you look at the bottom 5 weight classes, and these are the weight classes that people keep saying, oh, they went up weight class after weight class after weight class. If you look at the bottom 4 weight classes, that is minimum weight, lightweight, flyweight, and super flyweight. There are only 32, there's between roughly 3,300 fighters in that weight class in the entire world. Just between super featherweight and lightweight, there's 4,150. Just in 2 weight classes. There are, at welterweight, there's active fighters, 2,100, between 2,100 and 2,150. At lightweight, there's over 2,000. Of super featherweight, over 2,000. Super welterweight, there's about 2,000. If you look at the total number of people between bantamweight and minimum weight and bantamweight, there's 3,250 approximately, and there's only 13 pounds between them. If you look at the lightweight, from lightweight to middleweight, there's 7,690 active fighters between 135 and 160. That is over twice as many fighters that fight between lightweight and middleweight as fight between minimum weight and bantamweight. So that's why I say I'm not giving people credit for twice as much give them twice the credit for doing half as much. First of all, the weight difference between minimum weight and bantamweight is only 13 pounds. There's half the fighters in half the weight spread. But between lightweight and welterweight, there's over twice as many fighters with twice the pounds weight spread between the two. Now, why would you say that somebody that wins multiple weight classes in a weight class where there's half the people and the weight increase is half as much should get more credit than somebody that fights in a weight range that has twice the fighters and twice the poundage? But it's not just that, okay? It's not just the fact that there's twice as many fighters and the weight distribution is twice as much. Also, look at where the fighters are actually coming from who are fighting in those weight divisions. Okay? There are certain powerhouse countries in the sport of boxing. The United States, Mexico, and the UK are the top three championship holders in the world, in all of the weight classes, are the United States, Mexico, and the UK. If you look at how many fighters actually fight at those weight classes from the countries that put out year in and year out, put out the best fighters, you'll see something very interesting. In the United States, there are zero, according to BoxRec, zero active minimum weight fighters that list themselves from the United States. The United States in the minimum weight class, 105 pounds, we have nobody there. The UK, it listed as minimum weight fighters in the UK. They have one listed on BoxRec. One from the UK. Mexico has 16 minimum weight fighters, active minimum weight fighters listed on BoxRec. Japan has 53. 53 of the 250 are from Japan. That to me, I think that is a fourth. Is that a fourth or roughly a third? 50 out of 250, that's over 20%. No, yeah, that's 20%. That's roughly 20%, slightly more than 20% of the entire weight class comes from Japan alone. So not only are there fewer fighters, a smaller weight range, there's also fewer fighters from countries that are considered to have successful boxing programs, where boxing is actually a major sport and one that is practiced, where they have a lot of institutional knowledge. Only one of the major boxing countries, powerhouse countries, Mexico, has double-digit minimum weights. And the same thing applies to light flyweight. The United States has 5. UK has 1. Mexico has 66. Japan has 87 of the 500 light flyweights are from Japan. You also see it applies to flyweight as well. Flyweight, you have 19 from the United States, 10 from the UK, 121 from Mexico, and 86 from Japan. And by the way, I also looked at China, and China has more people in all of those weight classes than the United States does. China is not a major boxing powerhouse. They do not have access to great trainers, excellent gyms. They do not have a long history of world championship fighters. So, to respond to the people that claim that I'm being biased because I don't give minimum weights and little weights as much credit as I do welterweights, middleweights, light heavyweights, lightweights, it's because there are significantly fewer fighters in those weight classes. The weight difference, the weight that you have to go up in order to get these belts is smaller. And the amount of countries that actively have with historic boxing communities and institutional knowledge participate in those weight classes to a lesser degree. That's why I am not giving as much credit to somebody that goes from minimum weight to flyweight as I would somebody that won belts between between lightweight and welterweight. So, like I said, I'm boxing nerding it out. I nerd it out. That's my opinion. You can take it or leave it. And with that, I'm out. Peace.